And good Thursday evening, everyone. Welcome to Pure Adrenaline Fantasy Sports. My name is John. Once again, joined by my co-host Sean. Sean, how are you?
I'm good, John. How are you?
Good. We're at week 14 of the NFL and fantasy seasons here. Most leagues, if they changed their regular season schedule, this will probably be their last week for fantasy, the regular season of fantasy. I know our league, our dynasty league, this is the last week. So hopefully we can point you guys in the right direction on some of the questions you might have tonight. Sean, I know you're a Vikings fan, so just on the surface, what do you think of tonight's game?
Vikings lose. We play horrible in primetime games. Kirk Cousins, when he's on the big stage, hasn't ever made up for it. But it's crazy. I saw a thing today that shows Kirk Cousins, he's best in the touchdown interception ratio. He's the seventh best quarterback rating on the year, or seventh on the best yards per game ratio. And I think he's ranked as like the fifth as the best quarterback on the season. And because of him being on the losing team, it's irrelevant because if he was on a good team, he'd probably be in MVP conversations.
Right, yeah, he's putting up great numbers. Terrible loss last week to Detroit, but they're still in it. They need some help, but and I know tonight you guys get. It's looking like Dalvin Cook will play, but Thielen's out. So, what are you thinking of the injuries tonight?
I think Cook should be sitting out for the week 2. We don't play until next Monday, so give him an extra week and a half off. Then he goes in with almost 3 weeks of rest. But if he thinks he can play, it's just, I don't know if you want to risk possibly playing against a Steelers defense that is hard hitting. That's the only problem I see.
Right. So, Dirtbag says, "What's up, guys? Dirtbag, how are you? Thanks for joining us tonight. If you have any fantasy questions this week, just keep posting them there in the chat." So let's look at tonight's projected stats. I have Ben Roethlisberger. He's 22nd on the year, but 21st tonight. Sean, let's go one by one here. Probably no Steeler quarterback worth playing tonight, especially Ben. I mean, he's getting a start, but he's not doing too well.
No, I wouldn't start him. The only way you're starting him is if you have someone that's on a bye this week, by like being Miami, Philly. I'm not sure if any other teams are on a bye, but unless someone's on a bye and you needed to pick up a desperate quarterback, I probably wouldn't go with Ben Roethlisberger just for the fact that he's probably not going to put up phenomenal numbers. If they get into a running game and they're able to run the ball a lot, he might not be able to having to throw the ball a lot. I know Minnesota gives up a lot of yards on the running back side of the ball, so that could put Najee Harris on for a big night.
Yeah, I agree with you there. We'll get into the running backs here in a little bit, but Kirk Cousins, like you said, having a great season this year. I don't have the season stats in front of me here, but this week I have him projected as the 14th quarterback, which is right on the outside of quarterbacks if you're in a 12-team league. He's 8th on the year, though, averaging 20 points a game, 20.1 points a game. I even though there's a chance Cook might play tonight, I think they're going to have to run pass the ball to stay in this game. What do you think of Cousins tonight?
I like him. I think he's worthy of starting in leagues. Like we said, he's best in the league for 25 touchdowns to 3 interceptions. And he averages, like you said, about 280 yards passing a game. So he's not putting up bad numbers, which is shocking for someone on a losing team. But he's without Adam Thielen, but he also has Justin Jefferson, who's been, I think, averaging 140 yards a game almost the last like 4 or 5 games. So he's been on a tear of late.
Yeah, yep. Looking at the running backs here, besides Najee Harris, is there any other Pittsburgh running backs worth putting in your lineups this week. Najee is second this week, but he's number 5 on the year, averaging 18 points a week. So definitely get him into your lineups. How do you think he'll fare? Minnesota, I do have it up on the screen. Let me look here. Minnesota is currently ranked 19th against fantasy running backs. So what do you think about Harris?
I like Harris tonight. I think he'll be having a pretty good game. And then it's from there, you don't really trust any running backs on the Steelers. I mean, and jumping over to the Vikings already, Dalvin Cook is playing. He's going to wear a shoulder harness, which he did in 2020 in the wild card game when he had the same shoulder injury against the Saints. In that game, he had 31 touches for 130 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Wow.
So he's expected to have a big game.
We have Kings 929 coming in with a question here. Thanks for the question. KJ Osborne or Brandon Ayuk from the 49ers. Sean, what do you think of Osborne tonight against Pittsburgh?
I like him. He's going to be the number 2 to Jefferson. He'll share some snaps with DD and Smith Marset, but he's going to see more snaps since he knows the offense more, and he's been there longer. Without Thielen, he's going to get more targets. I think he had 7 or 8 targets last week after Thielen went down. So he's going to get the ball thrown to him, where Brandon Ayuk last week, he didn't really be relevant until the fourth quarter. I think he didn't have a single catch until the fourth quarter on the second to last drive of the game. And you can't trust him, knowing that San Francisco has so many people they could throw the ball to possibly every week. And with George Kittle right now, finding the way he is, I don't know if they're going to want to throw anyone else. They might just keep throwing to him as much as possible, knowing he can catch the ball.
Yeah, absolutely. I took a quick look here. I do have Ayuk projected at 13.7 if it's a PPR league. About 5 catches, 60-some-odd yards, 40% chance at a touchdown. Since going up against Cincinnati, who currently is 17th against fantasy wide receivers, where I did have Osborne at 9.6, but that might change a little bit with Thielen not playing. I don't know how much that factored in. I have Thielen on the list, so but he's averaging 8 points a week, 3 to 4 catches projected, 40, 50 yards, and a 30% chance at a touchdown. You still like Osborne over Ayuk?
Yeah, I think it's more trustworthy. Ayuk, he was having great games. He had 2 good games, but it's hard.
Before we get back to tonight's game, Dirtbag has another question. If I had to start one of Detroit's wide receivers, Reynolds or St. Brown, Sean Maya looked those 2 guys up. I don't know Reynolds. I do know St. Brown. I do have him in our Dynasty League. I might have to play him this week because more for the Jets. Didn't practice today and it doesn't look like he'll be playing this week. So I have to take a deeper look into St. Brown. But do you have any thoughts on these 2 guys?
It's a risk to go with either of them. If I had to pick anybody, I'd probably say St. Brown, just because he's been there all season. Reynolds just got there about 3 weeks ago. And so I think St. Brown has a better connection with Jared Goff, and he's been playing better of late.
And they do have a tough matchup. They're going up against Denver, who's currently ranked number 6 against fantasy wide receivers. So, but I agree with you. I like St. Brown a little bit better. He's averaging 9.2 fantasy points a week. So I don't know. I mean, man, that one's tough. Because let me look up Reynolds to see what I have him at. Reynolds at 8.9, so they're pretty equal. Reynolds had averages 6.6 on the year, but had 10.9 last week. Like I said, going up against Denver, Dirtbag, maybe check the waiver wire to see if somebody else might be available.
Yeah, it's just it's hard to trust someone on Detroit being receiving wise, just for a fact. I think DeAndre Swift's questionable to come back. So if he's coming back, he might take a lot of touches away if they're able to run the ball pretty good.
Yeah, yep, agree with you there. Let's get back to tonight's game. I know we talked about Najee Harris. Did you talk about the Vikings running backs? What's somebody do when it comes to Cook and Madison tonight?
If you have Dalvin Cook and you feel trustworthy, if you need him to play for you in a game, then for a matchup, I would play Dalvin Cook. If you have Madison, I don't know if you can play Madison knowing the fact that Cook might play normal touches if he doesn't get banged up or anything. Knowing that he's playing and he's wearing a shoulder harness, he might have a lot of protection on that shoulder, and he might not fight for extra yardage. They also might, instead of running up the middle more often, run him outside of tackles a lot to try to get him not to have to get tackled as much or ripped at the ball as much. But you can't not start Dalvin Cook if you need him in a matchup. You have to almost believe that he's going to have a great game.
At 6:00, when I printed that the stats that are on the screen now, I had Dalvin Cook at 13.8 points, 14 carries, 65 yards, 50% chance at a touchdown. I have him now. He's and that was 11th. Now he's ranked 4th at 15.9 points, 16 carries, 75 yards, 60% chance at a touchdown, adding 3 receptions and 24 receiving yards. And they are going to Pittsburgh is 23rd against fantasy running backs.
Yeah, both defenses aren't really great with stopping the run. So they might use Madison more as a receiver tonight, just for the fact that Cook is back.
Right. What do you think? Let's jump over to receivers here. And guys, thanks for the questions. Keep them coming. I hope Deebo Samuel plays. Sean, any word on that before we dive back into tonight's game?
I know they said he was questionable. I know they said he was probably going to be out 1 to 2 games. Obviously, he missed last week, but knowing the 49ers, they're not going to put him out on the field unless they physically need him out in the field tonight or Thursday or Sunday night. I don't see them wanting to risk him being injured, knowing they can play the way they played last week. But it is a must win almost. They can't afford to lose another loss. So if he's probably 90% or 80%, I'd even say, and he knows he can play, I feel like they'll have him on the field, even as a diversion to get someone else open.
Yeah, that was a bad loss for them against Seattle. I know the game was in Seattle, but San Francisco can't be losing that kind of game if they really want to stay in the playoff hunt. Let's jump into the wide receivers tonight. On Pittsburgh, I know you like Deontay Johnson tonight. What do you think of Johnson tonight, but also maybe Claypool or James Washington?
I'm high on Deontay Johnson just for the fact that you're going to have probably 2 of the top 5 wide receivers in the league going out and playing tonight. He's obviously the go-to guy for Ben Roethlisberger or even Mason Rudolph when he played. Chase Claypool, I know he had a toe injury, so he was questionable, but they said he has no injuries had going into the night. Other than that, I can't really trust Ray McCloud or James Washington on Pittsburgh unless someone were to get injured on with Johnson or Claypool. They're too risk worthy to want to have starting in a lineup. And then, like I said, Johnson, he's been going off lately. I think he's averaging almost 8 to 9 catches a game in the past few weeks. And I think last week he had 2 touchdowns against Baltimore.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have the numbers in front of me from last week. But yeah, that was a great game for Pittsburgh last week. And yeah, Johnson was all over the place last week against Baltimore.
Yeah, he just finds a way to get open, and even when he's not open, he still finds a way to go up for the football or dive for a football.
Let's see here. How about the Vikings? Jefferson. We did touch on Osborne a little bit, but anybody else even worth being on a fantasy team, let alone putting in your lineups?
Jefferson obviously is a must start.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, KJ Osborne, he's a risk. If you need a receiver or need someone to put in your lineup, I wouldn't put him in a flex spot. I'd put him in a receiver spot just so you have your flex open for Sunday in case if someone's inactive, you don't hold up a major spot. Besides that, I wouldn't start Westbrook, Marset, or Chisena. The only people that are worth starting would be Jefferson, obviously, and Osborne at a risk, knowing that Thielen is out. Someone's going to have to get the football besides Jefferson every play.
Yep. Agree with you there. Tight ends. We have Freiermuth for Pittsburgh, who currently on the year is ranked 13th. I have him 8th this week. But Minnesota is tough against defenses. They're number 8 against fantasy tight ends, so a tough matchup here. They usually hold tight ends down. But what do you think of Freiermuth and Conklin tonight?
I think they're both destined to have a good game. Conklin more for the fact of Thielen being out. Conklin will be good for good checkdowns because they're not, like I said, they're probably not going to throw much to Dalvin Cook unless needed. They'd probably throw more to Madison out of the backfield just to put the risk down of injury. Conklin, I feel like, has a better upside if you needed a tight end to start. Freiermuth, he's been consistent, but unless he's scoring a touchdown, it's hard to say he's worth a fantasy start unless you have no other tight ends, because there's so many people on the Steelers that are going to probably get a touchdown before Freiermuth with Harris, Johnson, or Claypool, that he's in a hole where it comes from getting a touchdown throw to him or even a pass towards him in the red zone.
Now I have Conklin tonight. He's 15th on the year, but 9th this week. I'm playing him in our dynasty league. I have to win this week. I'm tied with 2 other teams for the last three teams are tied for the last 2 spots. So, and I'm playing one of those teams. So hopefully I can get the win there. How about kickers? Both guys are ranked in the top 10 this week, and they're actually ranked in the top 10 during the season. And both Pittsburgh and Minnesota are bad against kickers, ranked 29th and 28th.
Yeah, I trust Joseph more than I trust Boswell. Joseph, he's been pretty good with kicking field goals. It's the extra point issue that he has. Boswell, the Steelers don't really go for many extra points. They would rather go for 2. Mm-hmm. So they've always been known for going for 2-pointers once that became a thing more often. So I would trust Joseph more over Boswell just for that aspect, and knowing that the Steelers, being the Vikings defense isn't great at stopping people, the Steelers probably are not going to be kicking many field goals tonight. I would think they're going to probably score more touchdowns.
And how about the 2 defenses tonight? I have Pittsburgh ranked 15th for the week and Minnesota 18th. They're not. Minnesota is 12th on the year. Pittsburgh's 21st, but probably some better matchups here this late in the year. What do you think of tonight's defenses?
I wouldn't start either of them. Minnesota gives up a lot of points and they don't get many turnovers. Even against a Ben Roethlisberger, you might get a sack or 2 on him, but unless he's having a really bad game and throwing interceptions a lot, it's hard to say he's going to have a great game. The Vikings and with the Steelers defense, Kirk Cousins hasn't been getting a lot of turnovers, so the turnovers are down. But with TJ Watt being that he's one of the best linebackers / linemen in the league, he's probably going to get in there to get a sack or 2 on Kirk Cousins tonight, because he hangs onto the ball too long.
Okay. And last week, Watt was all over the place against Baltimore. Man,
Yeah,
Pittsburgh really needed him back.
yeah, they've proven when he's on the field, they're a different defense, just with one guy difference.
So, that's the position. Looking at the positions, any wild takes for tonight's game?
I don't know. I just think it's going to be an interesting game. I really do. You got two teams that are in must-win situations from here on out on the rest of the season. They're both on the outside of the playoffs looking in. Tonight being that it's a teams that couldn't beat Detroit game, but Steelers tying them and Minnesota losing to them, that it could either be a really boring game or it could be a really exciting, high-scoring game. So with Minnesota being the home crowd, I think that you have to go with Minnesota has the edge on it, but I think the Steelers are going to find a way to sneak one out just for the fact that Minnesota is 3-9 this year in one-score games, 6 of those games being decided on the last possession of the game of the game.
Yeah. How about any crazy projections, player projections?
I'm thinking between Deontay Johnson and Justin Jefferson, you might almost see 300 yards tonight. I think you're going to see two players have extraordinary games. They're both on a different level, and they're both top 5 in the league when they're healthy.
Yeah, I actually like that. I could see that. Like I said, I don't have the numbers in front of me from last week, but I think if you look at last week's stats, I believe they were over that number as well.
Yeah, Jefferson I think had around 175, and I think Johnson had about 140.
So yeah, that'll be fun. That'll be fun to watch.
And they combined, I think, for like 20 almost 20 catches and 3 touchdowns. And that's not even including how many times they're all targeted. They probably had almost 30 targets combined.
Right. Let's take a quick look at the rest of the Week 14 schedule. We do have Indianapolis, Miami, New England, and Philadelphia all on buys this week. Is this the last week for buys?
Yes. Yeah, it's the last week for buys. It's crazy to think Week 14, you come back, you got 15, 16, 17, and 18, and the season's over in the playoffs. So, and all 4 teams that are battling, or all 4 teams on a bye, are either in the playoffs or battling for a playoff spot. Miami and Philly have been on a hot streak of late. Indianapolis has been playing really good, and New England Patriots is the number 1 team in the AFC, and truthfully, probably one of the best teams right now in football.
And I just thought of this. Could you imagine if your fantasy league didn't adjust the schedule and they did a 13-week regular season and your fantasy playoffs this week, and you have, Jonathan Taylor, and he's for your first round playoff game, he's on a bye.
You have Jonathan Taylor and Damian Harris, and you have Devontae Smith at a receiver and Jalen Waddle, and you're looking at your team like, damn, I got a lot of buys in 1 week.
Yep. So hopefully your leagues did switch that around. Let's look some of the quick games here. Baltimore going to Cleveland. What do you think of that? That's a division matchup. That's back-to-back division matchups for Baltimore on the road.
Baltimore's got to get the turnovers down. The turnover ratio is really bad for them right now, and truthfully, it was really dumb on their part last week going for 2 with 12 seconds to go in the Pittsburgh game. It was kind of like odd for the fact that they win that game. They're the 1 seed. They lose that game. They go down to, I think, the 3 seed. So, and why would you want to give Pittsburgh possibly the win, knowing that could propel them to a playoff spot? Why not battle it in overtime? But obviously, they trusted that they could get it, and obviously they didn't. Cleveland,
go ahead.
Cleveland is pretty much must win in the AFC. There's so many good teams in the AFC right now. It's going to take probably 10 or 11 wins just to get in the AFC, I believe, for the playoffs.
I actually have that up on the screen here. I'm in NFC. How do I get to AFC? I agree with you on the Baltimore going for 2. call. When you're fighting for the number one seed, you don't take that risk.
Yeah, because that put them back a game to New England, and New England right now, the way they're playing, it's hard to want to say you want to give someone an easy win, and to possibly give Bill Belichick a bye week, that's probably the worst case scenario. And for them to have home field advantage, especially with wintertime, pushing the season back a whole week, that's even possibly even better news because Bill Belichick's always played great in bad weather games and playoffs.
Let me bring it up on the screen. It's from the website playoffstatus.com. Looking at it here, if the Titans, Ravens, and Chiefs all win this week, all four teams at the top of the AFC will all be 9-4. So home field. I don't know. I don't have the tiebreakers in front of me. So home field would be a crazy race down to the last 4 games of the year.
Well, I believe the Ravens own the tiebreaker over the Chiefs just because they beat them this year head to head. And I believe the Titans have the tiebreaker over the Ravens just because I believe of their conference or their division record.
Oh, okay. Let's see. No, it doesn't. It doesn't tell me that, but that's okay. Let's go back to the schedule here. Dallas going to Washington.
Yeah, that's a big game for Washington for the fact that they win that, they're a game out of Dallas. They lose it. If they lose that game, it's kind of hard to make do of the division. There'll be 3 games back in the division. I know they play Dallas one more time, but you can't be 3 games back with only 4 games to go then.
And let me look real quick. Oh, okay. This game is in Washington, so yeah. I mean that's a win here, and they're 1 game out with another game to go against each other. So that'll be good. Really not. What do you think? Jacksonville and Tennessee. Tennessee should be.
Tennessee should be good, but we've also said that a lot this year. And Jacksonville always seems to show up in big games. They beat the Buffalo Bills, so it could be a good game. Tennessee's obviously without Derrick Henry still, without A.J. Brown and Julio Jones. So who steps up for Tennessee is going to be the real question.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we have Vegas going into Kansas City, another division matchup.
Yeah, I like this game for the fact that I think Kansas City, the way they're playing right now, it's hard to say they're not the second best team in the AFC behind New England right now, just for the fact that they started the year out so badly on defense. And I think over the last 5 games, their defense has almost been locked down. Getting the turnover ratio has been going phenomenal for their defense, the offense, and they've controlled the mistakes on offense. And that's what's saying Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce each haven't had big games in the past few weeks. They've actually been pretty silent.
Yeah. Yep. I just bring up the Saints and Jets because the Jets are my team, but I expect another loss this week there. Seattle, after beating San Francisco, looking to rebound this week, going into Houston. Should be able to get another win there as well, you think?
Yeah, it's what Seattle team shows up. I know Tyrod Taylor, I believe, is out for the Texans. They've been saying he was injured last week in their game, so that could affect the Texans' chances of winning. Obviously, they have no playoff contention. They're the only team so far been eliminated from playoffs. But Seattle, in order to try to have a chance at making playoffs, they have to win. They pretty much have to win out. And they did last week by a big knocking off big win against San Francisco. So they have to try to rebound, and they can't afford to beat San Francisco 1 week and then go to the next week and get beaten by Houston.
Yeah, I just looked at it. Even though Seattle is 4-8, technically they're only 2 games out of the last playoff spot.
Yeah, and I believe, and with the people ahead of them, it's 2 division people. Or there's 4 division people with the Saints, Panthers, and Falcons in one division. And then you have, I believe it's Washington and Philly in another division that they're in with, and then Minnesota's in there as well. So obviously the Rams are going to pretty much be, they're out and they have their own destiny, being that they're the number one wild card team. It's just who falls in behind them.
I'm thinking about. Oh, sorry, dirtbag. Just saw your question. I'm thinking about using Washington's defense. Sean, what do you think of that?
I don't like that. Dallas's offense has been on a tear of late, and their defense is playing so phenomenal that the turnover ratio they've been getting of late is helping their offense even better. Look at last week against the Saints; they had 4 interceptions, and I think all 4 of those turned into points. So that could hurt your defense for being it's Washington. For this week, for defenses that I actually like, I actually like the Chargers defense. They're going up against the 3rd string Giants quarterback. I think that's a pretty good matchup. The Seattle Seahawks playing against David Mills Texans. And even the Saints versus the Jets, I think, is a really good defense to defense to offense. I think the Saints could keep Zach Wilson under control, and with the turnover,
especially there now with the Elijah Moore news coming out, looking like he's not practicing this week and won't be available for the game. I actually have the Saints ranked as the number 2 defense this week behind the Packers. So good call there.
Yeah, I think if he had to pick between obviously Washington or Buffalo, I would probably go Buffalo, just for the fact that Tom Brady is still giving up a lot of turnovers. I mean, they're winning games, but they have a lot of turnovers going their way.
He also says I might be able to get Seattle's defense. If you can get Seattle's defense, I would definitely get them. Sean just said no Tyrod Taylor this week, and they're playing Houston anyway. So Houston right now is 21st against fantasy defenses, so a good matchup there.
Yeah, and Houston's not going to try to win any more games. They're trying to go for a top 3 draft pick between them, Jacksonville, and Detroit. So why keep trying to risk winning games? So I don't see them trying to put too much effort in right now winning.
Yeah. That's a good point about Brady. The next game we have Detroit going to Denver. Detroit, I know a lot of fans like to say, well, Detroit's not trying to win any games anyway. Now ownership and stuff might be thinking stuff like that, but watching the players' reactions after scoring that touchdown last week against Minnesota, they don't want to lose any game.
If they weren't trying to win, they would have never have gone on a minute 50 10-play drive there to end the game last week and score a touchdown. Jared Goff would have just thrown the ball, in the back of the end zone or something and cost them the win. Detroit has played everybody tough this year. They only gotten blown out, I believe, 1 time, and that was against Philly. And looking at their record, they've played, I think, like 5 or 6 one-score games. 2 or 3 games have come down to a last-second field goal. So they've been playing teams really hard this year. It's just their 4th quarter luck, they just didn't have any, and they finally got some last week. And if the games would go 50-50 on most of how they turned out, they could possibly have 4, 5, even 6 wins this year.
I just looked. They have 5 losses this year by 8 points or less. So that's just 1 score. And they have a tie against Pittsburgh. So,
yeah.
I mean, like you just said, some of their games, the ball bounces a funny way. They could easily be 6-5 right now.
Yeah, you figure Minnesota won on a 30-second drive to beat them, I think, week 4. Baltimore in week 3, last second 67-yard field goal. Pittsburgh, they missed 2 field goals in overtime and 2 extra points during the game that could have won them the game in regulation. it's a list going on and on and on. It's Cleveland, they had the backup in. They only lost by 3 points to the whole Cleveland starting team. So they've played people great. It's just they didn't have the luck go their way to win the games. And I think they honestly could win on Sunday against Denver.
Wow.
Denver did not look good on Sunday night against the Chiefs. And looking back at it, they haven't had a wide receiver, I believe, have over 100. The wide receiver or tight end, they haven't had over 100 yards, I think, since I looked into it. Was like week 4.
Wow.
So Teddy Bridgewater, I don't think is the answer in Denver, honestly. Not to say anything bad about Teddy Bridgewater. I mean, he's had up and down career for sure, but I just don't think he's the starting quarterback type anymore, especially for Denver and their youth of wide receivers and running backs.
Yeah, I actually like Denver. Denver's building a nice little team out there. They definitely have to get. I agree with you on Teddy Bridgewater. They need an absolute leader at the quarterback position. So they could be one of the teams involved in the Aaron Rodgers fiasco. Now there was a rumor before the draft that there was a trade in place, but it never materialized. So
Even
that could be a place he goes.
I think they could also be in play for even Russell Wilson.
Mm.
I don't know what the Seattle would want, but knowing Denver, they haven't had a winning season really since Peyton Manning left. And I don't know if they even made the playoffs since Peyton Manning has left. So they might need some big leadership and Russell Wilson to come in there and help with their offense and mobility. Obviously, Melvin Gordon, I think, is a free agent at the end of the year. I think he only signed a 1-year deal or a 2-year deal last year with them. So, and Javonte Williams on Sunday night against Kansas City, I think he had 140 yards of offense and a touchdown. I think he's proven that if he can get the full game touches, I think he's worthy.
Yeah, absolutely. Then we have the Giants and the Chargers. The Giants are a mess right now. I believe they're 4-8 as well. So, what do you think about the Giants? Their whole situation.
I think they cut ties with their wide receiver core, Shepard and Galladay. You just gotta get rid of them at this point. I think they've combined. They played one game this year with both of them on the field. You can't sit here and keep having 2 guys on the field or 2 guys who are out almost every week. Shepard, I think in the last 2 years has only played like 7 or 8 games combined. So how do you keep wanting to have someone having a roster and rebuilding when you can't even have your receiving core out there? So, and now they're playing with their 3rd string quarterback, possibly with Glennon and Danny Dimes out, and to go up against the Los Angeles Chargers defense who just destroyed Cincinnati on Sunday, and their offense absolutely was on fire as well. It's hard to possibly say that the Giants have any chance in LA, but LA has proven that if you are an away team, you will be a home crowd.
Yeah, and that's only for Chargers games. Rams games aren't like that.
Yeah, there's not many Charger fans out there that have been around.
Yeah. But then we have Buffalo going to Baltimore. That Monday night game, they're 2 division opponents for me, and I was actually looking forward to that game. And I know the weather was windy and snowy, but that was a horrendous game. What did you think of Monday night?
I liked it for the fact that the running backs kept destroying from New England side, just kept rolling through Buffalo, and Buffalo just had no answer. As a defense for Buffalo's defense going into this week against Tampa Bay, that's got to put a chip on their shoulder, knowing the fact that they lost giving up 3 pass attempts. So it looks bad on the Buffalo side to go up against now Tampa Bay and a Leonard Fournette that's playing on all cylinders right now, and a fully healthy Bucs team besides Antonio Brown. It's hard to say that they're not going to play with a chip on their shoulder just for the fact that they need to have a bounce back win after losing that badly on Monday night with, I think, almost over 200 yards of rushing yards against them.
Yeah, and what do you think of Tampa Bay? After a couple rough weeks, they had 8. They lost to the Saints. Then they had their bye. Then they come back and lose to Washington. But since then, they've won 3 in a row. They beat the Giants, the Colts, and the Falcons. Do you think they've gotten things turned around there, or this is going to be a tough matchup? And then they got the Saints again next week. So
I think it's going to be a tough matchup. Tom Brady's been having a lot of errors on his part lately, and that's un-Tom Brady-like. He had a pick 6 last week and throwing from his own 8-yard line, and just the amount of interceptions that he's been having. And I mean, not all of them are his fault. I know against Indianapolis, I think they had 3 turnovers. Washington, he had 3 turnovers. So if they can limit the turnover ratio, I think they should have no doubt a better advantage against Buffalo, for the fact that Buffalo is going from 20, 30-degree Buffalo to probably an 80, 90-degree Tampa Bay. So the humidity could play in Tampa Bay's part, knowing that they are the home crowd and obviously the home team and been used to that.
And then we have San Francisco going into Cincinnati. Usually I don't like when West Coast teams come east, but this is a 4:00 game, so that the time zone difference shouldn't be a difference there. San Francisco with a bad loss, and Cincinnati, who I thought would have beaten the Chargers last week at home, get the L there. What do you think of this matchup? Both teams need a win, but only one of them is going to get it.
Well, technically, both could get one if they both tie. The Steelers have shown that if you have a tie, you probably can almost get in the playoff picture because it'll help your percentage of wins and losses. So I like the Bengals more for the fact that they're at home. But I think if Deebo Samuel plays in this game and he is healthy, I think the 49ers win the game for the fact that they're just a better team overall. Cincinnati, they came within 2 points last week. It was 24-22 with a few minutes to go in the third quarter. Then they got the ball back after a fumble, and Mixon fumbled the ball on a handoff. And from that point on, they gave up, I think, 23 unanswered points or something. So, and Joe Burrow, I believe, had a broken finger in that game. And then he put a glove on, and then he took the glove back off. So they haven't said if that was anything major, but it was on his throwing hand. So does that play a part in the throwing part? And I know Joe Mixon got banged up late in the fourth quarter there. So does that play anything to do with this game as well?
And then after Cincinnati, I'm just looking at their schedule, because if they lose to San Francisco, then they're going to have to really hope to turn things around. But then they play the Broncos, who are 6-6. Then they play the Ravens again. Then the Chiefs, and then the Browns. So they don't have. I mean, this isn't an easy week either, but they don't have any easy games left. If you look at their schedule, you'd be like, oh yeah, we can win there. We can win there. Right now, you could say they could lose the rest of their games.
Even if they were to lose out, though, I think if any Cincinnati fans were out there, I think they would be happy on the season for the fact that they were only predicted 3 or 4 wins. Joe Burrow, how much is he going to play with his injury? Jamar Chase, he can't catch a football in preseason. He's used to seeing the white stripes coming at him, and now he doesn't have them on a football. So, and their defense had a lot of question marks coming into the year, and to be even having, I believe they're right now the 7th seed in the AFC or the 6th seed, that you have to look at it right now as this season so far has been a win. It's by far been a win. And if they win on Sunday, to knock San Francisco's chances of playoffs almost down, then they have proved their own, and they could also go in and play the Baltimore Ravens and Chiefs really hard and win one of those 2 games even. That would help them, I think, on the season overall, because if they could beat Baltimore, they would probably jump Baltimore in a division, I believe, and would own the tiebreaker over them then.
I looked at it. Their playoff chances right now, current standings, right now, San Francisco, even though they are in the last spot, they actually have a 53% chance of not making the playoffs, even though they have the last spot right now. But if they lose to Cincinnati, that jumps up to 62%. So that's a tough. But if they win, it drops down to 37%
Yeah,
of missing the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say. I just think if they win this game, I think that improves their chances a lot. To lose this game at home, it's kind of to lose back-to-back home games against playoff possible teams. You can't have that and want to make the playoffs.
Let's look. Then we have Sunday night. We have Chicago going into Green Bay. I had heard that Fields will be back this week. I haven't seen a definite answer on that, but is that true?
Yeah, I believe that is true. I heard that as well, that he was going to be back and playing. But to go up against a Green Bay defense in Green Bay, it's not going to be good for him. That stadium is going to be loud on a Sunday Night Football game.
Yeah, on Twitter they were talking how they should, even if Fields is ready to come back, maybe sitting him out this game just because being in Lambeau. But I mean, if they think he's the franchise, you want your guy back in there.
Yeah, I agree. I just don't think that you don't have him in the game.
So, and then ending out the week, we usually have him on the show. Payo Time, LA Rams fan, who'll be live streaming that game. But we have the Rams going to Arizona. I believe this is the second matchup. Of the two teams.
The Cardinals won the first one in LA.
Oh, they won the first one in LA, and they currently they have a 2-game lead. But even if they win, mathematically it'll be 3, but they would own the tiebreaker. So it would be 4, and the division would almost be wrapped up at that point.
Yeah, they could wrap it up next week. I believe the same goes for Green Bay. Even if Green Bay wins on Sunday night and the Vikings lose tonight, I think that division as well would be clinched on Sunday Night Football.
All right, let me look at the Cardinals here real quick. Cardinals. Oh, what if scenarios? We got Dirtbag coming back with an Alan Lazard or Christian Kirk question. Ooh, Sean, why I looked that up real quick. I like Lazard. Lazard's one of my favorite players in the NFL. Not always a great fantasy option, but why I look up their projected stats for the week. What do you think of these two guys?
I like Lazard more for the fact that Christian Kirk is playing against the Rams defense. But I also like Christian Kirk for the fact that Jalen Ramsey's probably going to play on DeAndre Hopkins if Hopkins is playing, which I believe he will be. So Kirk could get a lot of touches, but I believe Chase Edmonds is coming back for the Monday night game from IR since I think he's been out since week 8 or 9. So that could change the offense a lot too for having both running backs fully healthy.
Yeah, and I just looked. Christian Kirk, I do have him projected at 10.6 points this week against the Rams. But last week, as Dirtbag says, Kurt has been putting up zeros. He only scored 1.4 points last week. Let me look up Lazard real quick. I was actually hoping in the offseason that the Packers would not put the tender tag on Lazard because I know the Jets needed a receiver. But Lazard, I have him at 7.1 this week going up against Chicago. What were your reasons for liking Lazard?
I just think I don't think he's been playing bad, but he plays behind Devontae Adams and Marquez Scantling and Randall Cobb. So that's the only thing I don't like about him is he's not getting as many touches. And with A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones, he's got 6 people that could get the ball before him any game. So, and Green Bay has always proven that if a receiver has the hot hand, they're going to go to him. So if Randall Cobb comes out and he's playing phenomenal, he might be the only one that gets the ball other than Devontae Adams a lot of the times.
So yeah, I agree with you there, guys. We're getting it's about 7:50 here on the East Coast. So make sure if you got anybody playing tonight, make sure you get your lineups in. It does look like Cook's going to play, and Thielen's out. Is there anybody out on defense that you know of?
Not on either part of either team. I'm not sure which people are out.
Okay. So let's see what else we got going here. Did you have anything else on the Rams Cardinals game on Monday night?
No. The only other thing I would look out for is if Darrell Henderson is playing or not. I know he's still questionable, so I would keep an eye on that. If he's not able to play and Sony Michel is available, I would pick up Sony Michel. If you can pick him up right now, even to put him on your bench, I almost would do that because
you did that last week in our dynasty league, didn't you?
Yeah. I picked him up actually in all my leagues, and Sony Michel went off, and I even put him in my DraftKings lineup, and he was one of the people that no one expected me to have, and I was like, I went on the edge, and when I text you and I was like, Darrell Henderson's playing, what do I do? And I was like, I'm just gonna go with it and wing it. It's a risk versus reward, but if Henderson is banged up and knowing that the Rams are most likely a playoff team, that if they go into this game and he gets injured and he's out for the year, that could hurt their chances. So if he's not fully able to play, and I don't believe they're going to have him on the field like last week.
Yeah. Dirtbag says another great show, guys. Thank you very much. Dirtbag, thank you very much. You're always active in the chat here with us. So always keep the questions coming. We do live stream. If anybody else is watching, we do live stream Thursdays at 7 p.m. Eastern time, and then Sundays at noon Eastern time, where we'll take a little bit of a more in-depth look at some of the fantasy matchups on Sunday. But some of the things I wanted to talk about before we sign off here. We are doing, Sean set it up. It's on NFL.com. NFL.com does a fantasy playoff challenge. Sean, I'm going to put something up on the screen, but people will still be able to hear us. Why don't you go over some of the rules and stuff that happen here?
Yeah, it's just a straightforward lineup. You pick a quarterback, you pick 2 running backs, 2 receivers, a tight end, kicker, and a defense. If you pick them from the wild card weekend, you could pick any player, any team, even if they have a bye and they're the 1 seed. You could pick them, and in the first round, they are only worth 1 point. Every 10 yards is 1 point, pretty much. In the second week, if they advance, they become 2 point, or for
double
every
the points.
10,
it doubles.
Yeah, it doubles, and then it triples in week 3. And then if they end up being in the Super Bowl team from the wild card, your wild card picks, they end up being ×4. But once they're in your lineup, you can't take them out, or else they lose their time edge. So you can't just take them out and think that they're going to be able to go back.
Right. You can take them out, but you lose if you do have double or triple points with that player. You lose that if you switch it out.
Yeah. So, and obviously, the more people that join, the bigger the payouts will be. But me and John talked, and we said that the best, unless a lot of people join, we plan on having the top 3 worth it. If a lot of people do join, though, we could also do is whoever has the best, like Super Bowl, or whoever has each round best, they can also get some money back as well. But obviously, we figured why end the playoff season or end the season with no playoffs and no fantasy. So continue into the playoffs and let the 14 teams that are competing give possibly more fantasy fun.
Yeah, let me put this in the chat, guys. If you have any questions about the playoff challenge, I will put our Twitter Twitter page up there in the chat here on Twitter or on YouTube. So right now, I believe we have 4 people signed up for that.
Yeah, and I believe I have about 10 other people that said they're going to do it. They just said wait till it gets closer and remind them. And obviously, we don't need the payments until the wild card weekend starts. So if you want to join, at least get your name in there and let the league keep growing.
Yeah, guys, we don't need the money right away. And if for some reason you're in it and doesn't work out, you're still in the league. If you don't pay, you just don't get the payout. The next person in line would get the payout.
Yeah.
So there's
But
I just put
it's
that in the chat. So if you guys have any questions, I did set up a Cash App. It's all verified over there. So the money thing won't be an issue. Were you going to say something else on that, Sean?
yeah, pretty much it goes off basic PPR points, 1 point per catch, and every 10 yards is obviously 1 point. You can have the decimal points and all that obviously as well. Defense, interceptions, turnovers, and defensive touchdowns. I know I was in one last year, and the team that ended up winning it was a team that had 4 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They had their whole Buccaneers team picked out in week 1, and I went with Green Bay and Kansas City as almost a whole team. So I rode it with them, and when Green Bay lost, I knew my chances of winning were out because I had Green Bay's whole team. I had ready to go for a Super Bowl run and was hoping that's what it was going to be. So pretty much when you go into it, you almost want to have your 2 Super Bowl teams picked out. Obviously, you're not going to be able to pick out a whole team because if they don't play great, you're obviously not going to have it. But you could also have a really great year or great 4 weeks of playoffs, just having 3 or 4 players that are in it and someone that doesn't have anybody.
Yeah, that was fun last year because we did. If your team got knocked out, you had to replace that player. But unfortunately, you weren't getting double points in that case. But it was actually like you said, it was actually pretty tight up until the Super Bowl because Tampa Bay made it. Most people thought Green Bay was going to make it, but with Tampa Bay making it, that one guy just pulled away. They're at the end.
Yeah, there was just no one you could compete with when you had Tampa Bay, and then their defense put up 60 points for that guy in one game there because of how many interceptions and giving up no points really in that game. So, but figured, like I said, no reason to have the playoff season die. Just keep it continuing and go into the playoffs, and then we can ride off into the off season, and we can continue talking about that after the season ends.
Oh, let's see here. Dirtbag, drop a link in the video for me for that. I'm going to have to make a Twitter real quick. Let's see here. Did the link not work? Let me check again here. Sorry, guys. Let me get this link real quick. That'll be something I put up. Let's see, Sunday. We live stream again Sunday. Maybe we get the link for the league.
Yeah, I can
post that the invite link and post that in the chat.
Yeah, I can. I'll get on right after we get off stream here. I'll send it over to you, and then you have it for
and
Sunday.
I'll put it in the description for Sundays. I'll put it in the chat and in the description, so this way people can check it out while we're doing the live stream on Sunday.
Yeah, and even if people join and they have friends or family that want to play fantasy football as well, we're open to as many people we can get. The more people, the better it is overall for everybody.
And the more prizes we'll add right now, because we're not sure how many we'll get. We're just keeping it top 3, but
we could go top. We could do top 5. We could do best points for each week. We could best lineups. Whoever has the best lineups, we could do. There's a bunch of different things we can do. Just the more people we get, the different prizes we can come up with. Once the wild card weekend comes out, we'll be able to say how many people are joining and what the prizes would be.
Yeah, absolutely. What else? Sunday, during our live stream on Sunday, we were getting ready to wind down, and we had Payo Time, the LA Rams YouTuber, on, and he broke the news at the end of the stream that we Let me show this. Oh, I'm blocking both Sean and I. We did get to 100 subscribers on YouTube. So, guys, if you're subscribed to the channel, thank you very much for getting us to that point. That's the first milestone. Twitter or YouTube actually opened up some things on our end once we got to that point. So thank you again for doing that. That was really cool. Sean, thank you. You joined me. We started the Thursday night week 1 between Dallas and Tampa Bay.
Tampa Bay.
Weren't really sure what was going to happen with the channel, and we love talking sports with each other. So we were like, I was finally like, you know what, I'm just going to do a YouTube channel. So thanks for being here every week. So what do you think the off season will bring us? The fantasy season will definitely be over, but we'll have lots to talk about: free agency, draft. What else do you think can go on?
I'm excited for the off season to see what we have in store, and me and you have been working on some things off on the side. So I think that to keep the off season going, we'll be able to keep talking, and we'll be able to always have streams going, even if it's one a week in the off season, or we could even figure out a way to even have maybe multiple ones. So we're going to keep the off season going, and we're not going to stop the streams for everybody, and we'll be able to interact with everybody as well and keep everything up to date for everybody on what trades happen, free agency signings, or even people retiring, and being able to talk about maybe careers that they had.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely looking into that. I'm setting some things up for the draft. I'm working on some display things on how we can do some maybe instead of Thursday nights where we go over the Thursday night game. Once after the Super Bowl, we do like a Thursday night mock where we come in, pick a couple different teams to do, and we just go through and pick the players we think those teams will be drafting and what those teams will need.
Yeah, and you can even think of, once the schedule comes out, we'll be able to talk about the schedule, what games look interesting, what games for the primetime schedule, what those look like, and all that. So there'll be a lot to talk about in the offseason. And as much as I'm excited for the rest of the year, I'm just as excited for what the offseason brings and what it's going to bring to what we have for all our subscribers to see and watch.
Yeah, absolutely. So, guys, we're getting close to kickoff here, so make sure your lineups are in for tonight if you got anybody. I know Cook's playing, Thielen's out. Great pre-show to the games. Yeah, we're trying to keep up to date on everything that's coming out. Sean does a better job at keeping me up to date than I can. But usually by the time he'll tell me something, I'm like, what? I didn't see that.
Yeah. But no, we like to just make sure everyone knows what's going on, and we like to try to make sure we know as much knowledge going into games. And you figure we're almost to the end of the year, so we'll be able to soon talk playoff seedings and people being in the playoffs. So that'll make it interesting.
I looked. I think the only two teams that can clinch playoff spots this week are Arizona and Green Bay, I believe.
Yeah, I believe so, just because the AFC is so close and on. But it'll be an interesting rest of the year, and obviously we're not going to stop now, and we're just going to keep continuing and giving as much knowledge on Thursday night. And once Thursday night football ends, we'll be able to talk, maybe even doing Friday nights or something, or early Saturdays for people for when they have the Saturday games on.
Right, yeah. I forget what week.
I think it's week 16.
Week 16, I believe they start Saturday games. So, yeah, I mean, we'll have to keep, because fantasy playoffs will be going on. So guys are gonna want to know injury statuses and stuff like that.
Yeah, we'll definitely be able to keep everything up to date and be able to keep people knowing what's going on, and for some fantasy projections, and be able to answer some people's questions as what they should do with their lineups.
So, guys, thanks again. Thanks for all the people in the chat. Thanks for the questions. Keep them coming. Sean, I know you got the Vikings tonight. You think they're going to lose tonight, though, right?
Yeah, I just don't feel optimistic knowing that we just had the loss of the century to Detroit. But Minnesota's always been surprising me this year, so I mean, I'm optimistic we win. I hope we win, but inside I know that we probably don't have a good chance of winning. I just don't see them able to show up and be able to perform tonight. I just think that Steelers have too good of a defense and too good of an offense to keep up with.
Yeah, I agree with you there. So, guys, enjoy the game tonight. We'll be back Sunday at noon. Sean, I'll talk to you afterwards, and good luck to the Vikings tonight.
All right. See you guys on Sunday.
See you guys.